Will one Nigerian Naira ever equal $1 again? Let's take a look at this image floating across social media. But before I address this image, I went deep and searched the US Treasury documents reporting exchange rates in 1981. Actually, I didn't dig deep. I just googled it. Anyway, in 1981, $1 was equal to 53 kobo or 0.5311 naira. And at the end of the year, it was 0.6495 naira, about 65 kobo for $1. What this simply means is that in 1981, 40 years ago, 1 million naira was more than $1.5 million. Wow, that feels great saying it out loud. Like, do you know anyone that's more than 40 years old? Do you know how they feel? It's crazy that at some point, Naira was worth more than dollar and even the Dubai currency. Anyway, 10 years later in 1991, 1 million Naira became $100,000. That was a massive loss, about 1,500% lower in value. 20 years later in 2001, 1 million Naira became $8,800. Another 1,000% in value lost, over 1,000%. 30 years later in 2011, 1 million Naira became $6,300. 40 years later, now in 2021, this year, 1 million Naira has become about $2,500. What's your biggest guess for how much a million Naira will be in the next 10 years, in the next decade? Comment below. I'm interested in knowing your thoughts. So it's clear that there's a massive decline, massive decline. And this made me wonder why it's exactly this way. And I asked, like, can $1 million ever equal 1 million Naira or about it? Will this ever happen? I can probably guess what your answer is, but let's talk. In this video, I'm going to be talking about inflation, currency devaluation, and money. It's Finance Friday after all. I'll also talk about how Nigeria makes foreign exchange or dollar. And no, Nigeria doesn't get almost all her money from oil. It's significant. I'll touch on the new economic policies we're currently facing and my advice for Nigerians watching this video, what you should do with your hard-earned money. If this video interests you and you think you will gain something from it, I'd love it if you could hit that like button so more people can see the analysis that we'll be sharing. And without further ado, let's get to the video. First off, what is inflation? According to Investopedia and theoretically, inflation is the decline of purchasing power of a given currency. So a country's currency doesn't have the power to purchase the same item anymore. That's inflation, or it can only purchase that item at a higher price. One way that this shows is an increase in the average price of goods in the entire country. So a country would know the rate of inflation when they calculate the general price level. Basically, the currency can buy less than it could before. So, true story, this lovely headphone of mine that I've been using for 2 years now, about 2 years, I bought this in 2019 for 60,500 Naira. Today, I get onto Jumia, it's 2021, and I see that this year, the price is 120,000 Naira. That's a 98% increase in price, almost 100% or almost double the price. Keep in mind that the dollar rate for this item hasn't changed in years, and there are even discounts, so it's lower in price. That is an example of inflation, and I tweeted about this. A couple of people cited a critical example about bread. Bread was 250 Naira, now bread is 500 Naira. Inflation is really bad for an economy. It correlates directly to the value of a country's currency falling. But what causes inflation? Like, why do we have inflation? One cause of inflation is the cost of production being high. I read somewhere that GT Bank spent almost 7 billion Naira on diesel in a year. That's money burning to run generators so that they can at least have electricity. Imagine how much less this would have been if Nigeria had constant or stable power supply. NEPA. Because of these high costs of operating, companies would pass this expense down to their customers in form of maintenance fees or even higher prices for services. The same thing can be seen when the cost of petrol is high or when subsidy is gone. Everything seems to be more expensive because now transportation of goods are now automatically more expensive because people have to fuel their vehicles for a higher price than normal. So the next time that shop owner says rice don't cost though, probably is because, cost of transportation is more than what they paid for shipping the exact same amount of rice. Also, when it comes to imports, when government doesn't provide dollars for food imports or certain imports, people have to source for dollar on the black market. And dollar on the black market is very, very costly. This will almost instantly translate into a higher cost that people would charge. In Nigeria, the same thing happens when you buy stuff abroad. When you bring it in, you incur numerous costs, either in import duties, which are so high, especially for things like cars. So we're paying almost double what we would normally pay for stuff just because it comes into the country. But do you know that there are people that benefit from inflation, a general rise in price? For instance, people who have bought land or property, they would of course sell it at a much higher price than they've bought it. So one way you can keep your money or save your money is investing in property. There are three main ways inflation comes into an economy. Firstly, when there is more demand for stuff than it's available, the prices become high. A major example was when there was panic in Nigeria that there would be fuel scarcity. Obviously, this means that there won't be enough supply of fuel, so petrol stations started increasing the prices of fuel until the government stepped in and it went back to a sort of normal price. This is also called demand pull inflation. The second way is the cost push inflation, where the cost of raw materials have become so high, so the producer or the service providers pass down the cost to the consumers. Like the rice example I gave, if the cost of fuel has increased, for instance, from say 50 naira per liter to 100 naira per liter, that's double what the rice seller pays, when they're transporting their rice. They would want to recoup that cost, so every bag of rice becomes higher in price because of the higher cost of transportation. Thirdly, we've got built-in inflation, which is more common in Nigeria. This one plays on the expectations or the minds of people, where they believe or fear that prices will rise. It's seen on the news all the time. People are expecting or subjectively believing that something will happen. You can see this all the time, that people are scared that Naira will fall to the dollar again, causing some shock in the economy. The government is well aware of this, I hope, and they have put many things in place to try to save the economy. But before we get to that part, let's talk about currency devaluation and how Nigeria as a country earns dollars. So what is currency devaluation? What does it mean when a country's currency is devaluated? And why would a country willingly do that? Currency devaluation, simply put, is when the currency of one country, for example, Naira, is deliberately adjusted downwards to the value of another currency like the dollar or a group of currencies. I'm going to touch on how Nigeria makes her money, but we're talking about devaluation now. The main reason why a country does this devaluation is so that there will be a balance. What kind of balance, you may ask? Why would Nigeria willingly accept, a much higher Naira for dollar? When a country, e.g. Nigeria, sees that we're buying more stuff importing than we're selling, aka exporting, the currency is devalued so that the goods produced locally here can be cheaper currency-wise to appeal to buyers of our products outside, in the hopes that we can export more stuff. Think of this like a bargain when somebody's trying to price down an item that they want to buy and they think it's worth a certain amount. However, a currency being devalued is one of the worst cases for inflation in a country, and the Naira currency, the Nigerian currency, has been devalued a lot. Unfortunately, Nigeria is very agrarian. We hardly do any manufacturing or services that we can export, so we're barely getting foreign exchange from anywhere else but oil and remittances. And for a country that doesn't produce so much, Nigeria spends way more than she earns. So how does Nigeria earn foreign exchange or dollar? In 2010, over a decade ago, this is how Nigeria's inflow looked like. Oil accounted for 75% of our entire income, or $76 billion in 2010. Then we have remittances, aka people sending money from abroad into Nigeria, being 20 billion. This is the one that CBN has been fighting for years. That's why we've had the crypto ban and many others, which I'll touch on shortly. Investment into Nigeria were about $6 billion and loan was about $1 billion, all in 2010. Fast forward to 2019, almost a decade later, and it's not far off from this year. The chart looks similar. Again, oil was $55 billion in 2019, which is lower, so Nigeria gets kind of worried. Investments were about $24 billion into Nigeria, and it was on par with remittances, which was also about $24 billion. Non-oil exports, $10 billion, and loans over $2 billion. Still, almost half of Nigeria's dollars of foreign exchange comes from oil. That's why oil prices really affect Nigeria and access to dollar. Oil is enough to change things in Nigeria if it goes good or bad. The second biggest source of foreign exchange in Nigeria is remittances. And as I mentioned, the CBN wants to guard this so much. So what is the government doing to protect the Naira and at least let it stand twice as tall? Pun intended. Apart from the normal things like monetary policy rates and the cash reserve ratio for commercial banks, which think of it like the commercial bank having their own savings account with the CBN. Apart from those, I think you can read more on that yourself, the CBN has created the Naira for dollar scheme. Although it's a short-lived program, for every $1 that you receive as a Nigerian, you get 5 Naira. And I explain how this works, what this means in my previous Finance Friday video. I'll link that video in the description. You can see what this implication is. The government also banned the importation of rice, and Nigeria practically now imports very little to no rice, although there's news about rice being smuggled in. Another thing is that the Nigerian government has said that no single dollar will be provided for people who import food or fertilizer because we have enough resources and people. The statistics shows us that, however, $2.6 billion have been spent on food, while $8.4 billion has been spent to import our very own fuel and petrols because we can't properly refine them in Nigeria. The central bank has also said previously that no dollar will be provided to people importing 45 items, of which there were rice, maize, milk, fertilizers, and toothpicks. And according to the stats, imports have actually gone down on these items. So yes, the policies have sort of worked. There's been news about maize scarcity since the import has been banned. Now, moving away from food and raw materials, the CBN has also tried to protect Naira's foreign reserves, or the dollar to Naira, by banning the banks from aiding exchange of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. If you want to see my full detailed review about that, watch my 2 videos that talked about it in the description below, why they banned trading through the exchanges, and I did a follow-up video. In December of 2020, they also banned some IMTOs, or international money transfer organizations, like TransferWise, and I explained it in those videos as well. You know, they did this to protect the Naira from arbitrage, where people would profit from the black market exchange rate while paying Nigerians the normal rate. The CBN now said that everyone must receive dollars in cash or in domiciliary accounts, and it must not be converted. Now, the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, seems to be coming for companies that allow Nigerians to invest in the US stock market. Again, it's supposed to be a means of not letting dollars in and out of the country unregulated. Bamboo and other investment apps like Trove and RiseVest have put out statements regarding this, but it's still a developing thing, and I'll be on the lookout if anything comes up. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I do hope that this isn't something that's going to affect these apps, because that would just be really bad. My first video this year was an experiment where I said I made an extra $10,000 saving and investing. I can link that video in the description below. It seems that almost all the apps I mentioned in that video have been targeted one way or the other. The thing is, people don't just want their money sitting in a Nigerian bank account because the interest rate is so low. I know, because I did try and I lost almost $5,000 because I saved my money in Naira. No, my money wasn't stolen. My money was just in Naira, and the country's currency kept on depreciating in value. People want to keep their money in a growing asset class. That's why they invest in stocks, in real estate, but it seems so hard earning in a currency that one doesn't know or can't be sure of what the value would be eventually. Will 1 Naira equal to $1? Actually, it's not hard to say, but it's certainly not anytime soon. Maybe if our exports far outweigh the imports consistently, maybe if we start producing cars and exporting them to other countries at scale, and many other things, but that's far out in the future. I'm really interested in knowing your own thoughts as well. And an app I recommend that people who are earning in Naira should use is PiggyVest. First off, they have an 8% per year interest rate, and I made about 100,000 Naira in interest per savings portion just by using them. I'll leave a link to their app below, and if you download their app through my link in the description and deposit 1,000 Naira, you get another 1,000 Naira because I referred you. This isn't a sponsored video by them, it's an app I used, and as I mentioned in my first video, they did help me save a lot, and if not more, and I also gained interest saving there than I would in a regular savings account. If you're more concerned about the rate of the currency, the Naira currency, I'd advise you to ask your bank about opening a domiciliary account so you can save your money in dollars and hedge against inflation in Nigeria. Also, if you feel like you have enough money, you can also invest in real estate and other growing asset classes, but try to watch my previous Finance Friday videos so you don't fall into Ponzi schemes and you see how people can get scammed investing in the wrong asset classes. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you found it useful, please hit that like button and hit that subscribe button so you'll be the first to know when I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys in the very next video.